The crew of the Alexa were just beginning to stir from their slumber as Catumander walked the deck towards the great upturned prow. Away to the southwest, a terraced wall of charcoal-grey clouds rolled down on the tiny ship, its fringes lit by dancing, flickering shards, a progress made all the more disconcerting by the silence which accompanied it, as the world seemed to catch its breath. A sudden flash pulsed in the distant sky, illuminating the trim figure of Arion at his station at the guardrail, and Catumander made her way across. Reaching up, she grasped the big forestay and exchanged a look of resignation with the red-shirted seaman. Catumander felt a hand tug at her sleeve, and looking down, she saw the fear-etched figure of young Philippos staring back at her. The druid attempted what she hoped would be a reassuring smile as the gaunt figures of Hector and Marcos paced silently across and joined them all at the rail. Philippos was the first to break the silence, but the emotion in his voice caused it to trail away to a whisper. The boy cleared his throat, and Catumander was aware of the conflicting rage within him as he fought to act like the man he now realized that he would never get the opportunity to become. He smiled thinly as he gripped the druid's sleeve. "You should have left with the Katy, Catumander. They would have carried you home to the Britannic Isles." Catumander shook her head and returned the smile. "That is not my destiny, Philippos." She leaned forward and whispered to the boy, "When the time comes, I want you to remain at my side." Catumander gripped Philippos by the shoulders and held his gaze until she was sure that he had understood the importance of her words. The boy gave a slight nod, and Catumander held the look a moment longer for emphasis before she returned the nod and looked away. Hesperos recovered from the shock at seeing the storm bearing down upon them and was hurrying down the deck towards his men. He opened his arms in a quizzical gesture as he began to rally his crew to face the trials ahead. "Well, do we survive this and become rich, fat landsmen, or not?" At the sound of their leader's voice, the crew reluctantly shifted their gaze away from the boiling ranks of leaden clouds which were bearing down upon them, and Catumander watched in wonder as their old sense of discipline reasserted itself. "That would be nice, Hesperos. That is what you promised us after all." A nervous laugh rose from the throats of the crew as the senior members exchanged a grin. The owner clapped Marcos on the shoulder as he replied with a nod. "And you know that I always do my best to keep my promises, my old friend." The first gusts of wind caressed the ship, and Hesperos sniffed the air like a dog seeking the scent of its quarry. He came across and, smiling warmly, shook each man by the hand. "Let's see what Poseidon has in store for us. If we can outrun this tempest, then we will have a fine tale to tell our grandchildren. If we are fated to be entertained in Poseidon's hall this night, then I can think of no men that I would rather share a table with." Arion had left his station at the prow, and he indicated the hold with a nod of his head. "Should we ditch some of the cargo, Hesperos? It could make all the difference." The owner grinned mischievously. "Your share, you mean? That is very noble of you, Arion." The men laughed as the leader looked back to the southeast. He shook his head. "It is a good idea, but the storm is too close. If this bitch catches us with the hatch cover off, we'll be gone in an instant." The first rumbles of thunder reached their ears, and as the crew turned and followed Hesperos's gaze, they were shocked to discover how close the storm front had advanced towards them in so short a time. Catumander noticed the experienced seaman exchange a glance, which seemed to confirm their leader's opinion of the rapidly approaching monster. It was going to be a bitch, almost certainly the last they would ever experience. Hesperos clapped his hands, and the spell was broken. He turned back to the stern and called on his close friend to follow him. "Marcos, Come and take one of the pedelia, and I will take the other. If we can run before this, we may still have a chance." The first raindrops began to splatter the deck, and within moments they had doubled in intensity as the leading edge of the storm front came up. As the wind began to rise, Hesperos raised his voice and called across to his men, "Aaron! Hector! Get the sail in quickly, or the wind will either have us over the side or snap the mast. Either way, it will be the end." He glanced down at Philippos, and Catumander could sense the regret within the Greek that he had brought the young lad into danger. "Philippos, look after our barbarian," he smiled. "Lash yourself to the mast and hang on tight." As Hesperos turned to go, he winked at the Druid, who acknowledged with a solemn nod that she had understood the man completely. He had, of course, been asking her to save the boy if possible, but one glance at Philippos confirmed that the words had had their intended effect. The boy fairly glowed with pride at the confidence placed in him by his leader, and the self-belief it had imbued in the boy could make all the difference very soon. The wind had risen as they spoke, and the first waves were beginning to worry the Alexa as the pair made their way unsteadily across to the big rope locker. Further aft, Hector and Arion were frantically playing out the halyards, and already the big spar was nearing the deck. Catumander and Philippos delved into the locker and tossed 4 ropes across to the base of the mast, hurrying after them as the spar reached the deck, and the men hurried forward and began to secure the sail. The wind howled and sang through the shrouds and braces as the crewmen stowed the spar and began to tie themselves off with a speed borne by years at sea, and Catumander stole a look to the stern as the ship began to come about. Hesperos and Marcus were both lashed securely to the handles on the big pedelia, and both men were hauling them to their chests, the strain writ large on their faces as they struggled to bring the head of the ship around before the full force of the storm broke upon them. Both men knew that the only chance they had of surviving the next few hours lay in running before the waves. Unable to use the sail in such conditions, and with only 4 oars, 2 of which would need to be manned by a boy and a barbarian holy woman, there was no alternative. If their strength could see them through, the waves would push the ship before them, either until the storm blew itself out, or they were driven ashore, and any shore, even one controlled by the barbarians in Carthage, offered a chance to live to see another day.